Yeah, good morning, students. This is Dr. Mirza. I am back here with this another chapter. Just want to run down some important areas as we discussed last time. So, here, if you see the importance of inventory management and go to the textbook also, the learning objectives which shows about how this chapter would be able to provide the reasons for necessary to hold inventory, differentiate between the various types of inventories and some basic inventory concepts, and then to identify inventory order costs and inventory carrying costs, and then you will be able to determine a suitable carrying cost percentage, set optimum inventory levels, or describe the contemporary inventory replenishment system and perform effective inventory control. But here, going forward, the functions of inventory, if you see the next slide which we talk about, this has some importance of geographical specializations and then decoupling and all. Before that, you can understand more on importance of professional inventory in locational economics, consolidation, economic specialization, which talks about a lot of areas. Then, sorry, here we can check on the contemporary, that is location economics, consolidation, economic specialization. This has very much the importance of the arguments that takes into the importance of the evidence that when considers that inventories have led to the demise of many businesses also. The downfall of some companies results from the fact that they are simply unaware of or not to do the cost inventory. Inventory is generally, considered as a safety factor, the lubricant or the one which tries to bring the supply chain into effect with smooth functioning of the total chain. So here the location economics and other areas which talks about some of the important things. On the other hand, keeping in years of supply of groceries or things like unfeasible or exceeded amount of things in the shelves and all those kind of occupancy purpose which adds to the inventories. Not too much, but sufficient to prevent the shops for an everyday for a particular consignment or a goods. The same arguments are valid for inventories in supply chain, that is effective inventories, that is too much, that is costing for a controlling these levels, starting for a strategic accurate forecasting and then so forth. But here this is followed by a detailed discussion of inventory planning which focuses on optimum inventory levels in different economic specializations. Here in our textbook, the term inventory, the stock are used as synonyms, and multi-echelon inventory management involving the use of scholastic model falls outside the scope of this book. So here decoupling, if you remember what is decoupling and WIP, we have already discussed this in chapter 4, which is talking about with the importance to how decoupling provides maximum operating efficiency in logistic environment by keeping inventories at different stages at different locations in the supply chain. Now, VIP, work in progress, is that is semi-finished good, is held between different phases of production process to prevent bottlenecks or stoppage in the production process. This prevents slowing down the speed of the total production process caused by constraints elsewhere in the process. Second, lower cost of purchasing, and then the third, transport also is, as it is given here, large shipments, lower cost transport, lower cost of purchasing, all are given in importance because of that is to reduce the cost control. Ordering goods frequently in small quantities involves high delivery cost, handling cost, administrative cost, and furthermore ordering of small quantities and mix between bulk and other opportunities to clear this trade-off of the costs. So it is for how this decoupling happens. We have seen this in chapter earlier also, but we will be discussing this in the chapter 16, which is not part of our actually the syllabus. So moving on, we can see the function of this inventories, that is balancing the supply and demand. As you all have a very good idea about supply and demand, what it takes care of when we talk about supply and demand. That is, inventory is necessary to reconcile supply with the demand for a product. Balancing is concerned with the elapsed time between the consumption and the manufacturing and the links of the economics of manufacturing with variations in consumption. The balancing function of inventory is most prominent in seasonal supply and or demand. You can say the seasonality can take two forms, that is seasonal production, seasonal consumption. So here the seasonal production about year round consumption, seasonal consumption but provide for peaks. That is, instant for a product may be relatively stable throughout the year, but raw materials may be available only during certain time of the year. In this case, the most agricultural products, typically canned fruit and frozen vegetables, fresh fruit and vegetables, and so forth. Many products have some seasonal variations in demand. A typical example is the demand of beverages in festive season. So that is how it goes. Now, buffer uncertainties is a particular inventory which involves demand uncertainty and lead time uncertainty, which means this uncertainty results from the fact that demand usually fluctuates from period to period, causing a probability that the demand may be more than forecast, or the more the demand varies from the period to period, and more the uncertainty and more difficulty it becomes to forecast demand. Lead time uncertainty refers to the elapsed time from the order placement to the order receipt and so forth. Now, prevent cost of stock. We are talking about something which is uncertainty in supply. Prevent, which refers to uncertainty about whether a specific product will be available at the future or not, or related to buffering function, that is for how amount of a particular stock can be maintained. Moving on, we have types of inventories. This is again very important based on positions in supply chain. We have seen all this raw material, work in progress, packaging materials, finished goods, based on purpose of cyclic or cycle stock, transit inventory, safety stock, speculative stock. if you see this, the types of inventories have different amounts of areas of how important it is to understanding the purpose of inventory as discussed in how we just check the preventing of cost of stock out, or we talked about something which is a geographical social location for a particular stock, a major function, in which what happens is a particularly specialization requires an inventory in the form of material, a semi-finished goods or components, and finished goods across the supply chain. Each location or member in the supply chains requires a basic inventory. Furthermore, in transit inventories are necessary to link manufacturers and distributors. So what happens? Those raw materials and the related process of work in progress, packaging materials based on the finished goods and so forth. And then this based on the purpose of how particularly cycle stock or transit inventory. When we talk about the word itself explains the meaning, you can refer your textbook also, then you will be able to understand more of it very clearly. Then we can check with how the third and the fourth way, which is important inventory concepts, that is availability, definition, measurements. Then we have average inventory, then half order plus safety stock. I will just give you a small idea about what we are talking about, important inventory concepts here. Now let me just take you to understand what is important inventory concepts. A thorough understanding of certain inventories related concepts is essential in effective inventory management. This describes the major concepts that are crucial for understanding and planning of optimal inventory levels. Now, what is availability? As you know, this has been made about to availability and its importance in the level of safety stock. This attributes to customer service is also explained, I think, in chapter 2 in this section, and also explained that is, the importance of measurements are briefly with context to inventory management. You can check that also. Availability can be defined even in a broad sense, how a key factor that is refers to capacity of business to have inventory when desired by a customer. Then the rationale for holding inventory is to have item available. The way at which inventory that is measured in a key planning optimal inventory. You can understand. I think in textbook they have given some formulas how it is defined. Availability by demand satisfied. Demand satisfied is by total demand for single item, total number of items supplied, total number of items ordered. On page I think 229 you can just check for those complete availability formulas over there. Half order and other things, that is plus safety stock. Inventory turnover is also done with reference to those importance of how those concepts are matched. Please check all those important areas on page number 229. Now this is all but average inventory order. If you see this diagram, there is nothing much except I can explain here is consists of materials, that is work in progress, components, and the finished products that are typically held in an inventory, that is for days, 10 days, 20 days, or in particularly how it is taken in from 125, 250, 500. As you can see, the graph shows over there. First assume a situation where it's 50 units per day and lead time for 10 days, then assume further, and so on and so forth. Now assume the 50. Now because of this you can understand the decrease in the order time quantity will result in the increase in the safety stock. So assume that therefore that safety stock will increase to 60 units. That is what it shows in as per the textbook, but you need to apply 185 total number of units that is concerned over the days, and then there is a formula given also for that. Inventory cost can be controlled. Now next to the sixth slide is inventory turnover. This is also important as far as your syllabus is concerned. That is, inventory turnover has a different way, but inventory costs are total inventory cost consists of purchasing cost, ordering costs, and carrying cost. I repeat, total inventory cost consists of purchasing costs, ordering costs, and carrying costs, also termed holding or maintaining cost. Some inventories related decisions in particular on order size are based on relationships between these elements. So what happens depending on the purchase price of merchandise, order costs and carrying costs require further explanation. So this is handling cost or order cost is nothing but which consists of order preparation and submission, that is receiving the order, placing it in storage, processing invoice for payments, and so on and so forth. Now depends on where stock is replenishment, that is again concerned with how important it is. Now carrying costs has a different way, but on the importance of a particular area of how the replenishment of carrying costs. Before that, I would just give you an outside supplier restocking own mail fee. Whenever replenishment, outside supplier we talk about, it is with the storage cost. So how they depend on outside supplier or restocking own field warehouse. That is how it is. Now carrying cost, which refers here to, unlike other logistic cost elements such as transport and warehouse, inventory carrying costs are not apparent in the financial statements but in business. For particularly you can say, it appears in a balance sheet on a asset side and there is no entry on inventory cost or income statement as per the particularly financial understanding for the logistics. So this is all very important, but here you can understand the calculation used to calculate the carrying cost, annual applied average, and there's if you put an example and then RO, that is Roma, that is for South African, Rupa or something, they call it as, that is into 20%, you will get this. You cannot, I don't want to get into those calculations right now on a video. Now this also you can leave it. Inventory levels, this another important place where you have called for setting optimum inventory levels. Now this part of any important area we cannot work on without understanding how much to order. Simple EOQ. Now let me give you a clarity on how we work on. And the next video, let me stop you here. Thank you very much.